take. The fun begins, we're here to stay. Ready, set, replay.
Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of our newest podcast series, Ready, Set, Rewatch, a show where we go back and take a look at some movies and TV shows that we all love and maybe a few that we hate. My name is Skyler, and with me is my co-host, Daniel.
Hey, everybody.
And today we are very excited to start talking about one of the most famous television shows of all time, I think it's fair to say, Star Trek, the original series.
Yeah, I'm really excited to watch this. I've watched a little bit of Star Trek, but none of the original series before. So this is a really fun sort of entry point, I guess.
I was gonna ask how much Star Trek do you think you have actually seen?
That's
across all shows and movies.
That's a really good question. I think I've seen all of the J.J. Abrams ones. I might have missed one in the middle there somewhere. But I definitely saw at least the majority of those. I think with you in theaters. Probably.
I remember seeing at least a couple. There's only 3 of those ones.
Oh, so. Then I've definitely, I think, seen all 3 of them. Because I definitely saw the first one, and I definitely saw the Idris Elba one and the Khan one. And I think that's all of them.
Yeah, that's all of them.
Okay, so I've seen all of them. And I think they're pretty okay. Other than that, I've only seen a couple episodes of The Next Generation, because at one point I started watching that and then just fell off partway through the first season.
That would be the time to fall off, yeah.
Yeah, apparently the first season of Next Gen is its weakest point.
Yeah, probably, it's fair to say.
So I have no idea. And outside of that, the only Star Trek knowledge I have is just from existing in pop culture. There's obviously some things that I picked up on. And I was in the other room one time at a friend's house while they were watching, I think, Nemesis. It was one of the Next Gen movies. When I was a kid, they were like, hey, me and my dad are going to watch this Star Trek movie. Do you want to watch this? And I was like, no, you have Zoo Tycoon installed on this computer over here, and I'm just going to do that instead. And they're like, wow, okay.
You chose Zoo Tycoon over a bald Tom Hardy in one of his first big movie roles, I think. I
couldn't tell you. Couldn't even told you if he was in the movie. I'm only relatively confident that that's which one it was.
Well, I can tell you he is in the movie. His name is Shinzon. All right, so that brings me to me. So my experience with Star Trek is more than that, but I need to set the record straight. I am by no means an expert. Part of this series, an excuse it provides, is to go back and fill the gaps, because I've watched all of TOS before. I've seen probably half of Next Gen. I have watched most of Voyager, and I really like Voyager. I don't know if that's a hot take, but I do.
Couldn't tell.
I've never seen Deep Space Nine. I've never seen Enterprise, although I think that's the case for a lot of people. I've never watched any of the newer things, but I have seen all the movies. All the original series movies, all the Next Gen movies, and all of the Abrams movies. I've seen those. So I've got some knowledge, but there's gaps, and that's what this show is here to help me fill the gaps.
Right. And for me, the gap is the whole thing.
So. Yeah, that's fine. So no better place to start
than one of the many beginnings.
Oh, yes. In fact, not even the only beginning for this show.
No, yeah.
This is the first of multiple beginnings for TOS. We will be talking about the original pilot episode, The Cage.
Yeah, I'm still a little confused as to how this happened, because I think there's 3, there's 2 pilots, and then there's the one that aired first, right?
Yeah. So a bit of a rocky start. So The Cage was the original pilot that Roddenberry put together, and it got screened to NBC in '65, and NBC was like, no, try again, which is interesting because apparently, allegedly, I'm going to be saying a lot of trivia throughout this series that, as I said, I hope most of it's true. We're just going to assume that everything you read on the internet is true.
Sure.
But apparently, Star Trek TOS was the first show ever to get 2 pilots to convince a studio to air it. Like normally it's just like didn't work, get it out of here. And I think
Right.
I mean that's still like the case to this day. But the studio was like, no, but try again. And then they did with the episode where No Man's Gone Before. But what's interesting about that is, even though that is where the show would officially kick off, it being the second pilot,
Mm-hmm.
it aired fourth because the NBC execs said, actually, we're going to rearrange this and put this episode first because we think it has more action. And so as we
Okay.
start talking about this, some things may seem to appear out of order, where it's just like McCoy is here, and then in this episode he's not here because they didn't have him yet.
Right.
There is debate on the proper order to start watching these, by like release or by production. We just went with release because that's how it is on Paramount Plus, and we figured that'd be easiest to watch along with if our listeners choose to do so.
And also, that's like the most accessible way to get to the show at this
Yeah.
point. Like, I doubt people are running out and buying the Blu-ray or whatever.
Plus, it's really only an issue for like the start of the first season. Once we get past this little hump, it's not a problem anymore.
Mm.
So we figured we'd just power through it, and that brings us to The Cage.
Yes.
Now, like I said, The Cage screened to the execs in '65, but it wasn't released officially until it came out on VHS in 1986,
Oh.
and then yeah, '86. So that's quite that's 21 years later.
That was like after this show finished airing.
Yeah, and they didn't even actually air it on TV until 1988.
Huh.
October 15th, 1988, they put out in full color. So that's pretty cool. So,
Wait, this might be a stupid question. Did Star Trek originally air in black and white?
I'm going to show my age here, everybody. I was
Yeah.
not alive in the 60s.
No,
so
nor
I
was
might
I.
be speaking without the information you need. But I'm pretty sure at that point, for the most part, it came down to what TV you had. I think by the mid to late 70s was when everyone started to get, not everyone, let me show my privilege here, but when a lot of people started to get colored television. So I think at first, yeah. That's another thing that we should get out of the way before we officially start talking about it. Everything on Paramount Plus and Blu-rays have been digitally touched up. Not just to look HD, but there's been visual enhancements, as George Lucas would say.
Yeah.
No more like ships on like little plastic ships on a string. There's some CG looking Enterprise shots here, which I don't know.
They don't look
I wa-
great, to be
I
honest.
want to say I understand the thought process behind it, but I'm pretty against tinkering, especially like years after.
Mhm.
Just let the show be old. I don't mind a
Yeah.
little puppet ship.
Well, because you sent me a video of like, this is what it looked like when it was a model, and this is what it looked like as CG, and the model
Yeah.
definitively looks better in
Yeah.
like every shot. So I don't
mean,
know. I guess they were just like, we have this new tech and we can make it do a loop-de-loop or something, but it
I
doesn't
think-
look as good.
I think the reasoning behind it was like, oh, we're putting this on DVD, or eventually, oh, we're putting it on Blu-ray, and now
Mm.
people can see how shit this looks. People can like see. So if we make it look like at least a high-tech kind of shit, then sure, we'll coast. But
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Maybe at the time they put it out, that CG was like somehow impressive.
There's a good chance. But yeah, let's get into it. Daniel, why don't
Yeah.
you kick us off on how the story goes for The Cage?
So this episode starts with the crew that we all know and love, and we will stick with for the entire series.
I love these people.
I love all of these people, every single one equally. So it's Captain Pike and a whole crew of just completely random people. It's number one, Yeoman, I don't remember her name, Yeoman Bad Ponytail, and Spock is there. And they receive a distress signal from a ship that went missing in like deep space or something 18 years ago, and they're like, that's crazy, there shouldn't be other ships out here or whatever.
Yeah. Right off the bat, I want to quickly discuss the uniforms.
Yeah, I
They're-
actually kind of like them.
Oh, do you?
I do. I like that
I-
they look comfortable, like the sweater.
Oh, they definitely look comfortable. They're big, cozy sweaters. part of my hang up is I'm just like, these are wrong. These aren't what they're supposed to look like.
That's
I
fair.
don't really like the big puffy collars.
Yeah.
Also, if you notice, there's only like blue and gold uniforms. We don't
Yes.
have red yet.
Yeah, which is weird. But I also don't know from my brief experience with Next Gen, I know that the different colors represent like what department you work in, and I don't think that's the case here. Or if it is, it's not consistent in any meaningful way.
So the colors become more consistent later. Like by the time I mean, obviously not this because this is just the pilot, and
Yeah.
I don't think they cared. But by the time that we get to, I want to say later in TOS, they kind of understand like, okay, red is security and engineering, blue is science and medical, and gold is command or bridge staff. Or gold is the one that's kind of iffy to me. I'm sure there's an official explanation, but it's just like there's some yellow guys over there, whatever.
Those are the
And then
others.
of course, they make it really easy for you. Later, when you get to next gen, they do the Legend of Zelda thing where now all the money colors mean different numbers. They switch some of the colors.
Oh no.
Yeah, so
Okay.
next gen red becomes like Picard wears red, and
Right, that's true.
that's like a command color,
And
and
the security ladies in yellow.
yellow becomes security and engineering. I
Yeah.
think blue stays the same. It's still science and medical.
So they just swapped
Um,
them. Okay, so I'll know to just not worry too much about that then.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, not this episode because
Yeah,
who
for
are
sure.
these people? But as we get into like the actual main crew, you'll just be like, "Oh, that's Uhura. I know her position. Oh,
Yeah.
that's Sulu. He's like the helmsman." Eventually, because all the episodes we watched for this so far, he's barely on the helm. But yeah. So the colors don't mean anything yet. But you think they look comfy? These
I do. I like
sweaters?
the sweaters. The one that the yeoman, whatever her name is wearing seems less comfortable. Like the women clearly get worse costumes, I think. But yeah, just the normal sweater. Like I'd wear one of those.
The yeoman has to be comfortable because she keeps getting yelled at by Pike in this.
Yeah, that's a weird thing, right? Because we're like super duper far in the future, and he's like, I just can't get used to a woman on the bridge. And it's like, what about number one? She's right there, and they're like,
Not
oh,
you,
she doesn't
number
count.
one. You're not a woman.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Pike. I wrote this down in my notes. I like Pike kinda.
He's
I-
neat.
He's okay. As we get to like the next episode, you're like, oh, I get why he's gone because Shatner
Yeah.
is way better.
He
but-
doesn't like. I looked her up. She's Yeoman Colt is apparently her name. I don't know if they ever actually say that or if I just didn't remember it or what.
I'm not gonna remember that.
She's only in this episode, so it doesn't even matter. But yeah, I don't think he's bad by any stretch of the imagination. I think he's just kind of like generic action man, and I don't know that
Yeah.
it would have worked long term.
No, generic is the perfect word to describe him.
He's like if you went in. Just visually, he's like if you went into a character creator and just went, yeah, that's okay, and just went
Yeah.
through with that. But I think he's a perfectly fine actor.
Yeah. We'll maybe see him again. Actually,
Whoa.
but it's not how you'd think.
Oh.
We'll get there.
Okay. But so yeah, so they intercede or they receive this distress signal, and they're like, okay, yeah, it's coming from a planet in this solar system that's Earth-like. It's a class M, I think they call it. So we're able to land there, and potentially the people could have survived. It would have been like 18 years, but they might be alive there. We should go and check this out. So they go start heading to do that, and on the way there, there's like a couple of quick scenes that we have on the Enterprise where Pike is seemingly having some kind of like crisis of whether or not he wants to continue working for Starfleet, because I guess they have just come from some kind of battle on a planet called Rigel, I think. And I guess it went rough because he doesn't seem to really want to do it anymore. And
Get
so
over this. Yeah.
the doctor, who I also don't remember his name, but I think of this crew, I think he's my favorite of the actors.
Well, one thing we
Dr.
haven't
Oldman.
mentioned. One thing we haven't actually mentioned yet is Spock is here.
Spock is here. Yeah, he's just hanging out.
He does very little in this episode, but by the time we're done talking about this episode, I do have something interesting to say about him being here.
Cool. But yeah, so we get like one of the only scenes with with the doctor, Dr. Boyce, it turns out, where he's wearing like what appears to be some kind of bathrobe, and he comes to Pike's quarters and is like, "Hey, I've got some medicine for you. It's a martini."
Yeah. What does he say? He says, people say more to their bartenders than they do to their doctors. It's a very 60s thing to say.
For sure. I kind of like it though. I like that you can tell that like even this early, they're very like Roddenberry had this idea of like who's going to be the captain's best friend. It's going to be the doctor.
Yeah.
And they really, I'm assuming, stick with that because I know that Bones is like one of the main characters.
They do.
So I guess they like set up their dynamics first and then figured out the actors and plot afterwards, which is, I guess, fine. But that's where we get this whole conversation about Pike being like, I don't know if I want to still work for Starfleet. Like, this is kind of rough. I kind of want to just like go home and hang out and be a normal human and live my life. And eventually they finally land on the planet, and immediately there's like this weird humming, and they go over to a blue plant and grab it, and the humming stops because I guess the plants are like vibrating music or something.
Weird alien planet.
Yeah, and Spock is loving it. He's got this big old dumb smile on his face as soon as they figure this gimmick out.
That's his job. I do the science.
He's like, "This is some great science."
He does smile. They clearly haven't honed in on what Vulcans are yet, because after this episode, we almost immediately go into people being like, "Spock, what's wrong with you? You don't have emotions." But like you said, here he's smiling. He's having a grand old time.
He's having a fun time. He's being a goober. The plants never come up again. I just thought it was a fun bit. They go and they find this like refugee camp where there's just a ton of people who have survived this crash, and they're all old except one attractive young woman who her name is Vina, and they say that she was like born at the time the ship crashed, which certainly implies that she is 18 years old, which is important going forward in this episode. That this is like barely not a minor. The actress is very clearly like 30 something, but the character is supposed to be 18.
Allegedly.
And they like start doing medicine checks on him and like getting ready for like them to come aboard and like, we're gonna rescue these people. And the doctor is surprised because everyone's like super healthy, and they are trying to figure out like why that's the case. And in the meantime, the 18-year-old lures Captain Pike away with her feminine wiles to a mountain where Megamind rushes out and throws some pocket sand at his face and kidnaps him.
That's true. So yeah, I want to talk about the alien guys for this episode, because immediately what they reminded me of are, if anyone's actually watched it, the surviving humans from Beneath the Planet of the Apes. They're all like psychic and scarred, and they live underground, so the apes can't find them. And then they do some stuff. I won't spoil that movie because it's actually yeah, maybe it's actually okay, that movie.
Really? Okay.
But upon me having it open right now and looking at one of these guys with their big pulsating brains, it reminds me of Kevin McDonald's character from Sky High. He's like the professor with like the big brain.
Right. Yeah. Regrettably, I have made Boom Boom.
That's him.
That's the one. Yeah.
Put up a picture of him. It's fantastic.
Yeah. They're these like they're these weird aliens who are mostly people, but they have like shockingly blue eyes and a mega mind head with like pulsating veins in it.
The makeup for the 60s looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I assume what they did was they just like put a bike helmet on a guy and then just wrapped him in like latex, but they put these like big defined veins coming out, and like they pump them with air so that like when they think or use their psychic powers, like the veins are twitching, and it freaks me the fuck out. I don't like it.
Yeah, it's very gross. Half of me is like, that's disgusting, and the other half of me like wants to touch it, and I don't know what that is.
I gotta touch it.
I need to know what that feels like. But so Pike gets knocked out, and he wakes up in a zoo, basically, where it's just like he's in like basically a prison cell with a bed in the middle, and then in these other like prison cells that he can see, there's like an ape man and a bird guy, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a magical menagerie.
Yeah, and he's there for a second. He's like, "That's crazy. What's going on here?" And one of the aliens comes up, the psychic aliens comes up, and is like, "You're primitive. You're gonna try and kick the door down or whatever. You're gonna like ram the glass." And he of course does. He bites right into it. And we come to find out that these aliens have incredible psychic powers. They can like make illusions. They can read your mind. They can speak telepathically. And they live underground because I guess they've ruined their planet.
Yeah.
And their goal seems to be that they really want Pike to sleep with this 18-year-old.
It's like the San Diego Zoo trying to keep their pandas.
Yeah.
Come on, pandas. Do the thing that you don't want to do.
We got to get these pandas to bone.
Yeah.
So they're trying to do that, and the way that they do it is they like run him through a series of basically porn intros, where
a little bit.
Where the first one is he's back on Rigel, which I guess they pulled out of his memory, and they're like, "Hey, Venus here, and you need to protect her from this Geico commercial caveman in a Viking suit." So he has to like fight this guy to the death, and then when that doesn't work, they send him. They're like, okay, well, what if you were on like a Caligulan, like weird, almost Greek planet, where Vina is a dancing green alien girl, which is apparently classic to Star Trek.
I wrote down. Pike was having some freaky She-Hulk fantasies.
Oh yeah, and the grossest part about it, and you know, it's the 60s, so there's probably going to be a lot of this, I imagine. But one of his like conjured crewmates during that scene is like, "Can you believe it? The women on this planet want to be objectified or something.
They love it.
They love it. They want nothing more than to be treated like objects."
They're having a great time. Now, okay, so she's like you said, she's green in this particular fantasy.
Yeah.
Does it imply that like they painted her, like in the context of the show? Because I noticed the paint on her wasn't super great.
It wasn't.
Like it was a bit streaky.
Mm. And when there's one point where she like puts her hair up in the dance, and you can see her scalp is not painted.
Yeah. So I mean, I understand that it was just like 60s rush job. We didn't paint her well.
Yeah.
No one will notice on bad small 60s TVs.
Yeah. Some of these people aren't even watching this in color.
I don't know. For me, for some reason, it's just like, look at this sex object. We painted her green.
We painted her green. The color of
money. Because he still recognizes it's her.
Yeah, immediately.
He's like, it's her. She's green now.
Yeah. They just wanted to double check because they were like, maybe he has like a Xeno fetish or something that we can try and lean on.
Got
here.
that She-Hulk fetish.
Yeah.
When was the character of She-Hulk invented?
That's a good question.
I'm gonna look that up. You keep talking.
And then the third sex dream they put him in is that they're back on Earth doing cowboy stuff. They've got like horses and they're just having a picnic. And somewhere in the middle here, like between the porn intros, they're back in the cell, Vina and Pike, and they have a conversation about like, hey, so this is what's happening. They want us to sleep together so that they can create a slave race to repopulate their planet and like save it because they destroyed it with war or something. So we need to do that. And if we don't, then they're going to like punish us. And they do. And the way that they punish Pike is by making him believe that he's on fire and like melting. Like his arms are clearly like the skin is coming off his arms.
They just send him to hell.
Yeah, they just sent him to hell for a second.
He's just in the hell room.
Yeah.
For the record, the character of She-Hulk first debuted in 1979. Star Trek was ahead of the curve.
Ooh.
But I maintain Star Trek is set in the future, so Pike would have known. He
would have known. Yeah, he's a big Jen Walters fan. But yeah, so they do all this, and then eventually the aliens are like, okay, he doesn't want to bone our 18-year-old. He is not a pedophile. Cool, great. So they decide to instead kidnap the two women. Oh, I should also mention, while this is happening, the crew of the Enterprise isn't just sitting around. They are shooting lasers at the mountain that Pike was kidnapped into and just having no luck at all. Like, they're just shooting at this thing and it's not doing anything. Anyway, the aliens steal the other two women from the Enterprise. So they steal number one and they steal Yeoman. I just looked up her name. Scott something? I don't know. Yeoman Ponytail.
More interesting than just stealing them, because at one point they everyone kind of goes back to the ship, and they have like a round table. Like, we need to save the captain. So they reassemble like another team, and they all go to the transporter, and they're like, "All right, let's go." But like the only two that actually beam out are the women, and everyone else is like,
Right.
What happened? Why did we not go?"
Hey, why are we still here though?
And it actually leads to my favorite part, just comically, when the the two other women show up, and he's like, "What are they doing here?" And big brain guy is like, "Well, you would not mate with this one, so we gave you these two. Do something."
Yeah, he's like, do the thing. He specifically, he's like, number one is very intelligent, and you might think that she's not emotional, but actually, she thinks about you all the time. And and number one's like, oh, and he's like, and this one is younger, but she's also stronger. I don't know. Do you want this one or not?
Yeah, just pick one.
Just pick one.
This one's blonde. What a awkward work environment, I gotta say.
Yeah, because like you're gonna go back to the ship after this, and that you're gonna be like, hey, so the alien said that you like were having thoughts about me. Are we gonna address this? Do we need to address this?
Okay, we never address it.
No, I mean, this is the only episode that most of them are in, so we don't have to. Anyway, that doesn't work out, and they like have found out. Pike is at some point in here found out that the aliens can't read your mind if you're super pissed. If you're just like angry and thinking about murder, then they can't read your mind, so you can kind of get away with doing other things. So I think it's supposed to be like that night, because they're pretending to be asleep. One of the aliens comes into the cell to try and steal the guns that they brought with them, which I don't know why. I mean, they're like super psychics. They could have just made them think that they didn't have the guns.
It's true.
But they instead decided to make them think that the guns couldn't shoot. So they sneak in to like steal the guns, and Pike starts strangling one, and
he immediately tackles this dude.
Oh, he tackles this dude so hard. He beats this nerd up real
Now,
fast.
I know that Pike is leaning into the violence because, like you said, his primitive emotions makes it so that these superior beings can't get into his brain. So he's like going full caveman on purpose, but he goes for it. He gets this dude to the ground. He's choking the shit out of him.
He's going real hard. And the guy like tries to make him think that he's the ape from the other cell, and Pike's just like, I know that you're psychic, dude. Like, I will break your neck. And the guy's like, all right,
go ahead,
whatever.
Do it. I'll strangle the ape too.
I'll strangle this ape. Don't think I won't. Some stuff happens, and he's like, I bet that these guns actually work the whole time. I bet there's a hole in that wall right now. And the guy's like, yeah, there was. And he like lets him see there's a hole there so they can get out. They go back up to the surface and are like in a hostage situation still with the other alien, and number one is like, I'm gonna set my gun to explode and it'll kill all of us. I swear on God I will kill everyone in this room right now. And two of the other aliens come out and they're like, hi, we read the books off of their computer, and it turns out these humans suck and we don't want them.
You're too much trouble. Get out of here.
These humans hate being enslaved, even if it's kind of fun sometimes. And the humans are like, yeah, no, bye. So at that point, the alien just like pretends that they weren't the bad guys the whole time and is like smiling and having a good time all of a sudden. And he's like,
revisionist history.
Yeah, he's just like, look, we let you go. Everything's fine now. And he's like, but quick, check this out. Look, Vena's gross. And he's like, shows what she really looks like, because she's a spaceship crash survivor. And she's like, I was a disgusting, mutilated mess when they found me, and they put me back together, but they didn't know what humans looked like. So this is as close as they got. Everything works. I could have had your kid if you wanted, Pike, but I'm gross. I'm gross now.
Oh my.
And Pike's like, gets upset about it a little bit, and he's like, hey, you should let her think that she's beautiful still, because she can't go with them on the Enterprise, because I guess she would like die or something. I don't know. It's unclear.
I don't think she would die. I think just the implication is, again, the morals of the 60s.
Yeah.
The implication is her living here with these psychic guys is the only place she can be beautiful. Right. If she left, she would be like this Quasimodo old lady.
She would look like that all the time, and she just doesn't want that.
Yeah, and to the point where, like when they all go back to the ship, Pike gets back to the ship too, and someone asks like, "Oh, where's Vina?" And he's like, the big brain people thought it'd be better for her to stay, and let me tell you, I agreed.
And I agreed. It's
It's
better
like-
for her to be pretty and a slave who's being low-key kind of tortured than for her to be ugly and free.
Oh my god. I wrote down in my notes, I wrote, ew, Vina is old and ugly and malformed. Just leave her behind.
Just leave her behind. I don't want that on my ship, I guess.
I did also write in my notes, as you mentioned, the aliens at the end say, dude, you suck. Just leave.
You know what? This isn't worth it. You guys have blown up like a big chunk of our mountain, and we pretended that you didn't. And honestly, I'm kind of sick of it. Just get off my planet. And then, because the funniest thing to me is that at the end there, he's like, "You'll return her illusion of beauty, yes?" And the alien's like, "And more." And he's given her like a illusory Pike sex doll to go and hang out with.
A fake Pike.
Yeah. He's just gonna go back down underground and boner Lucy Lou doll.
Ew.
So
I did think it was kind of interesting going to why she's so malformed, because like you said, she survived the crash. And one of the things she says upon Pike seeing the real her is, like, they tried to put me back together, but they don't know what a human is, so this is what I am now.
yeah.
And it's just a hunchback. Like, they could have been more off base than they were, if we're being fair. Give
Yeah.
them an A for effort.
Yeah. There's a couple of weird things there for me too, though, because it's like, okay, but so you could pull from Pike's memory Rigel and what the bad guys there looked like and that whole thing, but you couldn't pull like what this person's supposed to look like, and then also how did you make her look beautiful if you didn't know what beauty was to a like, I don't understand that.
Well, if we're reading between the lines, or doing the legwork for the show, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe she was so dying and in pain that her thoughts were too primitive at the time to read what a human was supposed to look like.
You know what?
But-
That actually makes sense.
But if we're not doing the legwork for the show, or if we're doing enough legwork that it hurts the show, what I will say is, yeah, these dudes have big brains, but they are humanoid.
They do suck.
Like, you know what a shoulder looks like.
Yeah. You could have just made her look like you, and she would have been better off.
Yeah, big brain. That would have been fine.
Yeah. Give her the psychic powers or whatever. I don't know. So that's basically where it ends. They just beam up to the ship, and then Pike says this thing about, like, we left her behind because she was really ugly and she can only be pretty here, and then the episode ends.
He's gross. Go fast.
Get out of here. Leave that stank nasty lady behind. They kept wanting me to sleep with this miner. We gotta leave.
Well, that's the one happy part of the ending, is she wasn't a minor. We were never being creepy at all. In fact, she was much older than we are.
Well, I don't know if that's true, though, right? Because she was a ship crash survivor, and the distress signal was from a ship that went missing 18 years ago. So we don't know if she was born after, but she could be older.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
It's unclear.
So she wasn't born when the ship crashed. She was already alive when the ship crashed. So all that horrible age makeup that we saw, she's probably only like 48 or 52, something like that.
Right.
So not quite that mouth. We can assume that was all scarring from surviving a crash.
Sure. Maybe she was always a golem. Who's to say?
That she could have looked like that before.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
She was the cook. They didn't let her out of the basement of the ship. But I know that this one didn't get picked up for syndication or whatever. I didn't hate this episode. I really didn't.
No, it has enough stuff in it that's cool, like the alien brain designs, and I do think the big gorilla suit was a little 60s.
Yeah.
A little aged. But and I don't think any of like the Enterprise sets look as good as they do, say, in the next episode. But there's enough here that you can see why they got another shot.
For sure.
Some last notes that I have before we wrap up this episode. I'm not a fan of how the phaser guns actually look in this episode. They are very, and granted, Star Trek wasn't Star Trek yet, so it's not like they invented what it was supposed to look like. But it doesn't feel like Star Trek to me. It feels like Buck Rogers.
I could see that. Yeah, the guns are a little bit more because the only phasers I know are the next gen ones where they just they don't even look like guns at all. They look like
Yeah,
phones with a little
the
thing on
next gen
top.
ones are like remote control
Yeah.
shaped things. Yeah.
Um,
We see some phasers in some of the upcoming episodes that we're going to talk about, where they are like little. They look like guns. They have handles but it looks. I don't know. It seems stupid to say those look like Star Trek, but
yeah.
hey, they do. Another note. So you said that you were okay with their uniforms, but what about their like away team gray jackets?
Oh yeah. I didn't know what that was for. Is that supposed to be like armor? Is it something you have to wear to transport? Like I don't. I have no idea. I didn't. They didn't look good. I don't know why. They had
No,
this like weird heather like shiny look to them that I think was
Mhm.
not great. And also, I don't know if they had even decided that that was the case yet. But if you're wearing that, you can't tell like what color the people's suits are, so you wouldn't know necessarily like what department
Yeah,
they were in or whatever. So
yeah.
I don't like those. No.
I I wasn't a fan of those at all. And then my last note here is I don't like to be a nitpicky guy, but I will point things out if they're funny.
Yeah.
At the very end, they're back on the ship, and we're like, okay, I'm back on my futuristic spaceship, and Pike sits down, and then he like signs a piece of paper on a clipboard.
Oh yeah, because the yeoman has been like trying to hand him his papers the whole time.
Yeah,
And he's just like, stop sneaking up on me. I can't
but
get used to a woman on this bridge.
it's just the fact that it's an actual like legal pad on a wooden clipboard.
Yeah.
It's really funny to me. But there's a couple of things that will pop up like that where I have another one of note like that written down for a later episode.
Cool.
Just real life things that sneak their way onto the future spaceship, which I
Yeah.
just think is fun.
I don't know. It's one of those things where like I'm sure that this isn't as good as the crew that we end up getting, but I wouldn't have
Mm.
mind watching this crew do more stuff. Like there's a lot of these people who I think would have been interesting. I think the Doctor in particular I would have liked to have seen. Number
Yeah.
one is like fine. I think Pike is also fine. I like if they were just like a rival crew on a different ship during the rest of the show. I think that would I would be happy to see these characters again. Is what I'm saying.
I think out of all the people we chuck out of this episode,
Which is everyone but Spock.
yeah, everyone but Spock. I think the one that I wouldn't have mind if they stuck around so that we could flesh them out a little bit would have been number one. I think the idea, especially from this time period, of having like a command position woman,
Yeah.
I think that would have been neat. Now, granted, I don't think it's fair to say that she didn't have a lot going on personality-wise in this because neither does Spock.
True.
So if you give anyone an opportunity, I think we could have done better with it. So if I had to pick one who I wouldn't have mind sticking around, it would have been her. Now the Doctor also is fine. I just love the bones that we get. So whatever. But speaking of all that, interestingly enough,
Yeah.
my fun fact that I have for this episode is that apparently, as the story goes, when seeing the pilot, and they were like, "All right, we're gonna give you another shot, but we want you to change all this stuff." One of the things that the NBC execs said to Roddenberry was, "Get rid of the guy with the ears."
This is the only thing they kept. So I guess he didn't
Yeah.
take this the criticism too seriously.
Yeah, he put his foot down. He was like, "That's my guy with the ears," and he
We're
stays.
keeping him. I think it's cool though. I think having an alien on the crew. I don't know if that continues to be a thing through all of the series. I mean, obviously Worf's in Next Gen, but I think it immediately sets you apart of like this is a sci-fi
Yeah.
world. We're going to deal
Yeah.
with other cultures. I think that that's an important thing. I guess maybe they were just like maybe a different alien or something, or I guess it doesn't matter.
I don't know what their thought process was, other than throughout history, studio execs rarely say the smart thing.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, even today, especially today. but yeah, they were just like, we don't like this guy, toss him. But Roddenberry fought to keep him because exactly what you just said. He
Yeah.
wanted an alien presence on the bridge.
That makes sense. I would have thought because the one thing that I had heard was that this didn't get picked up because there were like too many women. Like they didn't want the women to be in positions of power or something, or they didn't think that the fans would like that.
Yeah, the exactly the opposite of what I just said about number one a second ago.
Yeah, and like I don't know, maybe in the 60s that's a thing, but watching in 2024,
we would have to
I
watch
don't
Mad
know.
Men to know for sure.
Yeah, you know what? We'll get to it. Any day now we'll watch Mad Men on this show. But yeah, no, what did you think of the episode as a whole?
I'm okay with this episode. I think it's neat. Like I was saying before, you can see Star Trek in this. You can see where it goes. I think a lot of the changes that they make are for the better. Like I think like the bridge doesn't look quite as cool as it does in the whole show in this, and the uniforms I don't think look as good. Although that might be up to debate because the actual uniforms they do just kind of look like long sleeve tees. So maybe
Fair,
you'll like the
yeah.
collars on these better than I do. So our what we're doing per episode is we're not going to grade them like we're on our other show, Ready Set Replay.
Yeah.
Please subscribe. We're not grading each episode out of 10 like we are for video games, but we are going to basically give it like a thumbs up, thumbs down per episode. And so what we're going to be calling that is if we give it a thumbs up, we're going to say engage because we're nerdy and lame. And if
No,
we
it's
give
cute.
it a
It's cute and good. We love it.
if we give it a thumbs down, we're going to say highly illogical.
Mm-hmm.
I was leaning towards highly illogical, but I don't think that's fair. I think there's enough in this episode to enjoy that I think it deserves a passing grade. I mean, like I've said multiple times, this scored them a do-over, which was unheard of.
Yeah.
So I'll give this one an engage.
I think I'm a little bit higher than you on this, but I'm in the same ballpark where I don't think it's like amazing or anything, but I
Yeah.
think I'm also going for an engage. I would engage with this episode because of basically all the things we said. Is I think that there's a lot of like good structure to this episode, and it really sets up like a crew and world that I would be interested in seeing more things in. You know, I to the point where I am actually a little bit disappointed that the only character from this that gets to survive into syndication is Spock, because there's a couple of these characters I wouldn't have mind seeing.
I will say, and I'll look it up right now because I don't actually know the answers, but that one of the current shows, Brave New Worlds, right? Is that what it's called? Or is that the new Captain America movie?
It might be both. It's definitely the Captain America movie.
Strange New Worlds.
Strange New
That's,
Worlds. Okay.
Excuse me.
You were
the
so
actual
close.
the actual Star Trek thing. I mean, the captain on that is Pike, played by Anson Mount.
Right, who's great. I love Anson Mount.
Who's definitely most known for playing Blackagar Boltagon. Don't even.
Right.
But yeah, I think the rest of his crew. I think like number one's on that show. So I think we get another shot at some of these characters. I don't know for sure
but with
though.
like different casting, obviously.
With different with modern day
because it's like
television
60
actors.
years later. Well, that's cool. I hope that I hope that this does well enough. Subscribe that we can get far enough into Star Trek to get to that show, because I would be genuinely interested in seeing.
Oh,
what
I've
these people
answered
do.
the question.
Yeah.
Not only is number one on that show, she's played by Rebecca Romaine.
No way.
And I like Rebecca Romaine, so that's probably pretty cool. I've heard good things about that show. Like I said, I haven't watched any of the new Star Trek television shows, but yeah, we will probably get there. Even if we don't get subscribers, I'll probably watch it eventually.
True. Honestly, we'll keep doing this even if there aren't subscribers, but also
Yeah.
subscribe.
Yeah, well, please do if you liked what you heard.
Yeah. So if you want to support the show, you can follow us on Twitter at @RSR_pod. That's RSR_POD. You can follow me on Twitter at Daniel J. McGee. You cannot follow Skyler on Twitter because he does not like social media.
Nope.
You can follow us on YouTube at Ready Set Replay. And you can rate and review us on all of your favorite podcast services that we will hopefully be on. If we're not on one that you wish we were on, let us know and we will get there as soon as we possibly can. And of course, if there's any shows or games or anything that you would like us to touch and play, please make sure to leave a comment wherever you can, and we will certainly take it under advisement. Was there anything else that you wanted to add here, Sky?
Let's see what's out there.
Let's see what's out there. See you next time, guys.
That's a Star Trek quote.
The game's just starting, the world's so bright. Jump right in, everything feels right. Let's play, take a trip back in time where pixels and memories intertwine. Come on in, it's time to play. Let's rewind to yesterday. The fun begins, we're here to stay. Ready, set, replay. Come on in, it's time to play. Let's rewind to yesterday.